Yeah.
So the code enforcement officer and the planner and myself we were looking at what our immediate hits were, and that was, you know, my two, marijuana and the road standards, the private roads.
Yeah.
And then the peddler one I'm not too familiar with, but those are the ones that to talk to the board to bring to the select board to get them to prioritize them along what else you have going, so we get a schedule going.
Okay. Because I have a question, and I'm not trying to cause trouble before we even get started, but what is the purpose of an ordinance? Is it to give the applicant the hardest time possible because we don't want to have growth in this town? Or is it to have something that is reasonable, that protects the town and helps an applicant be able to do what they would like to do?
The purpose of ordinances is really to guide the town in achieving its comprehensive plan. That's what it's all about.
But
It says right in the manual that the purpose of the ordinances is to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of Sebago.
that's right. I know that. I just asked the question. But there goes my second part of the question. We have been making it seemingly as difficult as possible. And I use Spears down at Long Beach as an example.
Yep.
Okay? A lot of what was required of him was totally unnecessary.
Okay.
And Dave Welch said to me afterwards, I said, why have we done this? They wanted to be in September, and now they can't be in until late October, early November. He said, well, we were learning. That's where I think we as a planning board have a responsibility to interpret the ordinances in a reasonable manner that protects the things, the health and well-being of the town, but also being fair to the applicant. So as we're looking at writing ordinances, I would hope that we can keep that in mind. That don't make it as difficult as is humanly possible and get hung up on one or two words in the ordinance. It's called perseveration. When you work with special education, okay? When a kid gets stuck on something and they just keep going over it and over it and over it. And that's what we've been doing.
Tina, I think some of the stuff that we're requesting out of our office is actually going to make it easier for both ends, because when we have a hard time interpreting something and to know how to help them go forward, that's when we need to look at that. So it's beneficial for both sides of that. I think looking at the road ordinances specifically is going to help applicants a lot once we get something there. And it's going to help with the orderly growth that you guys are talking about, you know, lack of better word, but the orderly growth that we're looking at.
I just want that out in the open, because it really bothers me when I see putting applicants through such hoops when it is not necessary. So I think we need to keep that in mind. And the Ordinance Review Committee did not have the experience with applying the ordinances. That's where I think we ran into so many of the difficulties, is that they weren't part of working with the applicants and adjusting things accordingly. So I'm more than happy that it's back on the planning board. I really am.
One of the things that we've talked about with Christina too is on these small applications like Spears and a lot of these non-conforming things, is to possibly have it so that those could be staff review. So they wouldn't require to come to the planning board. They'd still have to meet all those sections of the ordinance, but it's something we could do in a much quicker, timely fashion than to waste months waiting for the planning board meeting.
Exactly.
But that's just discussion at this point.
But
So.
no,
Is this started?
Yeah.
Is this started?
Let's get started. Yeah.
Is there a marijuana section in here that we're supposed to have?
It's on page 5.
Page 5, very
It's-
limited.
It's small.
I thought Sebago had an ordinance stating we weren't having any.
you what?
Yeah, I got word from the state that our ordinance doesn't have any teeth to it. It doesn't use the language that they recognize, and it references a repealed state statute,
Do we have
so.
cannabis growing operations?
You said page 5?
Which page five?
Or which, oh,
Yeah, it's the one, and apologies for the numbering, it gets a little goofy when you include other ordinances with their own respective
Yeah, where
numbers.
are
but
you?
It's towards the front of the packet, like actual,
Page
real page 5, we'll call
At
it.
the top center.
But I
Brett, why don't we
do-
just
as we
start
said,
the
let's-
the workshop? Yeah, okay. So let's begin the workshop. Continue.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so with marijuana specifically, I guess I'll start there. It can be as simple as just adopting these standards within the actual land use ordinance. It doesn't necessarily need to be its own separate document. It can just reference first the authority, you know, the town of Sebago is a home rule town. You know, so you have the authority, and then first. Do you have this page? It might be on the.
Okay, no, I was going by the numbers on the bottom.
Oh, okay. All right, yep.
so,
And then for the actual standards that apply to it, for enclosure and setbacks, that it would just need to have some level of setbacks. Now, this is more to get the discussion going with you folks. If there's additional standards that you guys think would be appropriate as a board. I know certain towns have odor control requirements, requiring like carbon scrubbing, filtration systems to prevent smell from traveling onto adjacent properties. And then beneath that, there's some definitions as well that are pulled from state statute. So it gets a little tricky because there are a lot of state protections around marijuana specifically, in particular with inspections. You know, there's certain qualifications that the state has for inspectors that they go to send out on these sites that the town couldn't just send out Christina or the fire department just on a basis. There's certain qualifications that the state has for people to go out to inspect these properties. But that's all state law that we can't really touch.
Yeah.
So again, this is just more for consideration, just putting it before you. You know, this, like all ordinances, are living. So based on discussion, you know, we could add standards, take some away, just it's up to yours and your discretion.
Okay. Good.
I guess I want to know what the one we have says now.
yeah, do you have a copy of ours now?
I probably do.
Curious to,
Yeah, what it says, I mean.
so, you got this information where? Is this from the state?
Yep, so the town of Sebago is not an opt-in state, so that's a program, what would you even call it, Jim? Just like, there's a process where you opt in, but the town of Sebago has not opted in to the state's marijuana program. And then this also references, the definitions are pulled straight from state statute. And then the enclosures and setbacks section as well. You know, those kind of setbacks could change. It's up to the board's discretion on that. But yeah, this is,
Is this for commercial? This is residential, personal use also, or just commercial?
no, this is just for the commercial, like, growing operations. Yeah.
Medical would fall under residential,
The medical is separate, so it's protected for the medical stuff.
Does residential have a right to grow?
Yeah, that's all protected under state, so.
And that can go anywhere? Medical?
You're gonna make a bunch, aren't you, Christina?
It's not,
I think if it's
I'm
exempt.
just trying to think
it
ahead of the
meets
things that if we're gonna go into the comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, you know, he makes some changes here, but I'm trying to think of everything on the
yeah,
other side.
I believe there's some pretty heavy exemptions around the medical stuff. It's really tricky. Like, I know that there's a lot of liability related to that as well. You know, like, you can't just publicly post, you know,
So
where those
basically
medical
what this
operations
is
are.
growers, fields,
Yep,
to
It's more
just
for the-
monitor,
well,
yeah.
put a big ass greenhouse and just go.
outdoor pot isn't what it used to be. If you want good forgive me, you want good quality marijuana, you go to an indoor grow.
They're all.
The people that are growing outside is for their own use.
Right.
You're not gonna see fields and fields of marijuana popping up in
Commercial,
state.
I think the commercial has to be indoors.
I don't know.
Well, and that's kind of where the enclosure and the setback standards would kick
You
in.
have a commercial license. I
That way they
think you have
couldn't
to
just
have
build an
some-
indoor growing facility right on the property lines
It's not
and
like the movies.
impact the
Yeah, well, it's night and day from indoor to
I watch
outdoor.
Ozark.
Huh? What's that?
I watched Ozark, it's over now.
So question, Brett,
Yeah.
how many of these do we have in town now, do we know? I
I
know
can get the
one.
number, I know that there are some in town, because the Office of Cannabis Licensing said we didn't have anything preventing it.
And the tricky part too, with the existing facilities, businesses, whatever category they fall under, technically under this, they would be grandfathered in because they are already operational, functioning, existing. So they would continue, even if the town did adopt something of this nature, they would still be permitted to continue to use their existing
So if they
operations.
were existing, but they were to sell, or can they sell the business, or once they sell, do they lose their grandfather?
And what if they stop growing for a year or 2 years?
Yeah.
And then pick it.
And I think this is
Retire.
probably a standard that could be added as well, in terms of like a limitations of, or expiration of use type section could be added.
So what does the town run into, if you don't mind me asking, like what has come forth to the town?
So
in regards
they
to this?
just recently changed the way that they do things, and they started notifying the town when licenses were approved, probably July. And
Okay,
that's when the first notice I got came in, and I asked why it was approved, where we have this ordinance, and he explained to me that he didn't even think we had an ordinance, and that after reading it, it didn't have anything that we could, it didn't have any teeth. They didn't recognize the language, and the state statute referenced in there was repealed in 2018. And that he recommended that if we wanted to do something, we needed to write an ordinance that we could stand behind.
so and again, I don't know this stuff, like, I don't do it. Is there certain types of waste, or is there, well, I know there's a smell to it, but like this is kind of like a silent business, are they selling it, is it
No.
just for like, where's this all going?
A lot of the ones, we don't have any storefronts obviously in town.
Right.
There are some that are caregivers, or they grow it here and they sell it to other retail
Right.
And it's legal in
facilities.
Maine, right?
It
And they
is.
also do, processing
Yeah.
and
You
manufacturing.
can do process manufacturing, and they make it into oils.
Oh, like the foods and the
Yeah, they do CBD and,
CBD.
yeah, and all those different terms of it.
So I guess what my question would be is what do you want this ordinance for? To get a piece of the pie?
Yeah, like what's the town's?
I mean, the
What is-
intention looked like it was, with the original one, to prevent all of these from being allowed in town, right?
Yeah, so I guess the intent behind this would not permit these types of establishments
Right.
upon adoption
Because that's
moving
what
forward.
your current ordinance seems to have, desired to have a prohibition of retail marijuana.
Yeah, I get that.
So all this language did was try to put it in the form that the state's looking for.
And if you do
Just to get
allow it,
permitted.
I mean, that's a lot, you guys gotta figure out how you want to allow it to,
Right.
Allow what?
marijuana.
Growing.
So, I agree with this, it's something we need to do, probably need to put our own
Just what
spin on it a little bit. But I'm just gonna ask the question, do we wanna outlaw marijuana retail outlets in the town? I know we voted for it years ago, I don't know, we sell alcohol here, I mean, if you, in the scheme of things, I don't think,
It's a quiet business, it's not like, people go in, get it, and go home. I mean, it's very, I mean, I don't know if you guys are doing surveys, but I think it's a good time this would be a good survey.
Yeah.
Not to say we need it on every corner, don't get me
No,
wrong, I'm
no.
not interested in
No.
that
no,
myself.
but it's a business and it's an
But it's
opportunity
a
for
money in the
somebody.
business, and there
Yeah.
is a medical form to it, because I know there are some people who are ill that
Right. That's a
utilize
different
it.
aspect of this. This is retail.
This is all retail.
This is what we're looking at was retail, not
Okay.
necessarily medical.
So like, you
This
know,
has
like
nothing
a
to do with
storefront.
growing it,
Well,
just selling it in a
Just
retail
selling it.
storefront.
It's also growing it for retail purposes as well, correct?
Right, yeah.
It's
the
anything that deals with the
cultivation.
retail side of it, basically growing or selling.
Wholesale.
So if you're selling it, it'd be wholesale.
So like
It
manufacturing.
deals with wholesale and retail.
Right.
Right.
So again, it's one hell of a business and it's quiet. I don't know, I mean, you know, like David said, we sell alcohol.
And again, all we were directed to do was basically take the idea of you being, prohibiting it now, and just being able to put that in language that's acceptable to the state. If you want to change, that's a different story. Right.
So this doesn't reference specifically medical marijuana.
No.
Should it?
I don't know.
It's the same, essentially, it's the same product, right? I mean, marijuana, the issues are the same, right? The
Yeah.
smell, the
Well, I
noise,
think
the
medical,
ventilation.
you get a card, you're
Price.
not taxed the same as if you're retail.
No, I get that, but we're trying to keep this, I mean, if you look at it, setbacks and things like that. I would think that,
the difference between medical marijuana and retail marijuana is price.
Right.
all right,
If you have a card, you can go to this side of the store and pay
It's all based on
$20, when you go to the retail side, you pay $40.
I think it's like, what, the state gets 25%
Well, they get a
tax?
huge tax cut.
Huge tax
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah,
So-
From a property tax perspective.
So I do know
yeah, I was just
that,
gonna say, on a tax perspective,
I do know with some of the growing too, there's setbacks from various schools, churches, and daycares and things like that.
What kind of property tax do these facilities carry?
Probably the same as any commercial. Yeah,
so this would be a commercial tax?
Even on the growing facilities?
I think on the use itself, I think on the product is where the state gets to tax.
I'm talking about the town.
Town taxes.
You would have to establish a process,
Right.
right, and determine price.
I don't know if the state, how that works with the state taxing, but there's a town
There would
gets
be
a
a-
percentage, the town gets a percentage of that, I believe, well.
Wouldn't it be a property tax?
so it would take a dilapidated warehouse and turn it into a functional warehouse, you know? You drive anywhere nowadays, you see these places that used to be businesses, and now they got large heat pumps outside, so.
Yeah. The
You know,
biggest
that's what-
complaint that I've heard from the communities that I've been involved with is odor. When
Yeah,
they're growing it, is a pretty pungent,
What's awful?
Yeah.
You drive through Bridgeton, you can smell it.
Like,
Yeah.
you cut through Freiburg and you smell it?
yeah.
If the
So the
planning
question
committee
is then,
remembers, when we went out on that hill to look at the property that they wanted to build that duplex on,
yeah,
the property adjacent to it is a marijuana growing facility.
Nice to look.
And you can tell that, well, I knew that, but I can also tell it by looking down the side of the building. They have a whole bunch of cooling units.
right,
That
exactly.
are lined up to try to circulate air and stuff.
it's probably condensers, because it's pretty moist in there, and it's condensers to keep the moisture out, because they do.
I haven't smelled anything from that one, and I go by there quite
Not while we
often,
were
but,
there.
yeah,
I'm sure there's a major venting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how far do we want to go with this evening? I'm assuming, Christina, you were just really looking to, let's put together a fresh list
We
of,
want to make a list and prioritize some of them,
okay,
some of the ideas.
So the question is, do you want to just update the language you have to prohibit? Or does the board want to proceed with making it allowable and put some standards in place?
I think we ought to make it allowable, but put some standards in place. That would make sense. We need to, if we want to control it, that's what we've got to do.
I agree, dude.
What?
I agree.
So allowable with standards?
Yeah.
I don't know how you go about scratching an ordinance, or are we going to just rewrite it and then put it on a warrant item?
Yeah, you
That's
have
what you have to do.
It'd be an amendment to the ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's always just amendment. You're revising the ordinance, now making it allowable with standards, revoking the previous prohibition.
well, this is something we should probably just get a feel from the town first, the survey.
I think a survey would be
It's probably
great.
the way to get
Yeah,
at it.
and I think to maybe have this go back a couple steps with all these ordinances, I think what we want to try to achieve tonight is kind of a list of priorities of ordinances that we want to work on. We've got a list from Christina and the town manager, of which they feel are higher priority ordinances being the road and this marijuana one.
Yep.
But does the board also have other ones that it wishes to partake? And then I think we formulate that list. I think that ideally, in a perfect world, we give it back to the Board of Selectmen and let them kind of peruse through it, say, yes, we feel that these are equally priorities, let's get going on them. And then if there's more work to be done, whether it's surveys or town intervention with citizens' involvement, that could happen simultaneously. And then I think the other thing, at the end of the meeting, we'd like to do is, maybe not this meeting, but the future meetings, establish the timelines we need to get these things done so that they are before the selectmen, so they have time to do their work, so they can get it on the warrant for the town meeting. So I think we want to formulate a schedule, kind of working backwards from when town meeting is to when the selectmen need to make their decisions in their meetings, when you have to have your meetings, so that we know the bulk of this work. I think we figured at the end of February, early March, when we want these things buttoned up tight so that everybody can have their public hearings and have ample time before the town warrants. So I think those are important dates that, because it always happens that we kind of push things down the line and we get into a crunch at the end, and it's not pleasant for anyone.
Okay.
So, might I suggest that we have a workshop at 5 PM for our next meeting, and we'll come back with our edits. To be honest, our next meeting, we got two people who are not gonna know anything about these, so.
No, and I think, again, the object tonight is to expose you to the ones that we've come up with. Maybe if you've got some, if not, then we'll just say, okay, next workshop, come with a list of things that you want. Let's try to get these out so we know these are the ordinances we're gonna work on in this, well, I'll call it session going into 2026. Run them through the select board and through the town if there's some feedback we want, and then hopefully we get positive feedback from the board of selectmen so that we can start doing our due diligence and discovery of what needs to be in those ordinances. So tonight's just really an introduction to what they've provided, which is, their two really ones are marijuana and roads. There's also peddlers in there, but I don't know, I think Mike would say that that's not the highest priority.
Well, we did have, at the top of our list, some stuff like fast food restaurants and food trucks.
Food trucks would fall under the peddlers.
Peddlers, okay.
That's what it's called in other towns. You can call it whatever you want, but
Mobile vendors.
it's basically mobile vendors.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to get, what we prioritize here to you and see what you want to add on and talk to yourself once you get these in.
Okay.
And be able to bring it to the board, but also be able to reasonably hit all them timeframes. So our next meeting, we'll have that set up to be voted on. So trying to get quite a bit done, so the things we're having issues with, we're addressing, but not too much where we're going to take too much of a bite out of this and not be able to bring it all forward.
Okay. So, is your list in here, by the way, in this document?
I think these are the items.
These are the items.
Okay, these are the items.
Yeah, so you got roads.
On the cover there, I kind of talked about marijuana growing operations, street design standards, and mobile vendors.
Okay.
And the street one is probably the one that has the most technical and deepest impact.
Oh, there we are. I got it. I see it.
I would feel that that's probably the one you're gonna spend the most time on, just because it has such deep-reaching impacts to all other ordinances.
So when you say street, are we talking the gravel road kind of work? Or are we
We're talking, yes.
Yes, something other
roads,
than a street.
Yeah, private roads,
Yeah.
minor roads,
Okay.
backlot driveways.
Okay.
What we gave you is kind of well, Brett can describe it a bit, but this is what's in place in Raymond, and I'll tell you, I've worked in that town for 15 years, and I've never done an arterial or collector road.
Well, and I don't think those are ever really built anymore.
No.
Other than maybe DOT kind of standards.
But the back three, the minor street, the private street, and the backlot driveway are the three most common that we deal with on a routine basis. And the idea is, currently in the town of Sebago, you have one standard under subdivision. And the idea is that, to Tina's point, it seems a little ridiculous that we have one standard depending on the size of anything, that you have to meet that standard, it has to be paved, da-da-da-da.
Which is really, yeah.
So this If you look under private street, for example, on the example we gave you,
What page?
Page 2.
page 2, there's a subnote 1.
Are we, is it your intention to adopt street as the name for everything?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we get to go to the ordinances and make sure we make all those texts.
Yeah, no, I get that, but that's good.
And that's
Yeah.
the problem, is that you've got multiple definitions
I
in
get
here
it.
as well. And when we've
We
done
know.
this in other towns, we've had to go in and clean up the definitions as well to make sure that they cross-reference, because some towns, one section says road, one says street, one says access, one says easement, and
Well, and the other thing too is everybody, I think, means the same thing in definitions, but there's not really a real differentiator in what a minor street, private road, like they all mean the same thing in some towns, but they call it a different name. And even within their ordinances, they kind of use these words interchangeably too, between minor street, private road,
Yeah.
like all these different.
And what
It shouldn't be.
So they're
We
all
shouldn't be.
streets.
And it should
all of
be
these.
consistent
Yeah,
and
I
clear.
agree, I agree.
And you can even do that in the definition, just to cover your rear end, is that you could say the term street refers to lanes, roads, or any other
Yeah,
verbiage that refers to that, so at least they come back to this standard.
So, that's a good example, but we should have come up with a list of definitions for our ordinances. That should be,
Oh, definitely,
if
yeah.
these are 3, that should be 4. You know?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
You know, to remove all this ambiguity.
Okay, now, a
So-
question.
Well, you know, at our current format for defining a new ordinance, we have, let me see here, let me find it, sorry. I just lost it. Crap.
What do you want, Bob?
I will just, here we go. So right now, in our list of things we identify before we get into writing a final ordinance is the problem or challenge, the goal, the resolution as we see it, which comes under key points. And then we move on, yeah, and that's really it. So what we should do in there then is what we're saying, we should have some definitions, a couple of definitions. And those can be framed even further, but at least a need for a definition, okay?
Okay, now, back to you, Jim, when you said there was one kind of road, you never dealt with it.
Yeah,
When we're writing these ordinances, should they pertain to Sebago?
yes, and that's why I was gonna say, I would recommend that for Sebago, an arterial road is Main State Highway, you know. A collector is a major industrial road, which you're not gonna see here. I mean, you
So
can
it's
you can call a collector commercial or industrial if in fact there's that one rare opportunity in every 10 years where somebody does wanna do something that large scale, you can change collector to industrial or commercial. The 3 you're gonna deal with the most are what we call minor street, private streets, and backlot driveways. That's what you see in small towns.
Minor
I want to
streets?
bring something up. Again, we're in the process of looking to go forward with a comprehensive plan. Now, a lot of this, wouldn't that fall under them to restructure it because we're so vague? I mean, again, I don't want, why I'm saying this is because I don't want you guys to be running hard on something if we're gonna be hiring someone to come in and work on that for our comprehensive plan. So I'm trying to save brain cells.
I don't think.
So, I mean, I guess I just want to make sure that, you know, they're not overtaxing themselves, and we're not hiring someone so that, to do the same thing that you guys are recommending, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would think that
totally
this
get
would
that.
be
You
an
don't wanna
important
duplicate
piece of
the
it.
work, Right.
Yeah.
But I think usually, generally, comprehensive plans formulate recommendations, and like a comprehensive plan might recommend the town adopt some street standards, but they wouldn't actually do the work to actually write and draft the ordinance and help implement it with the boards and go to public hearings like that. They recommend it, but the board to pursue that, but they wouldn't actually help with the process.
And most comprehensive plans don't get into technical design, which this is clearly getting into the technical design elements of it. The comp plan would basically say, we should be doing these types of development in this road
Yeah.
area or in this part of the town.
It's more of the larger picture, like, this is where the town should be in 10, 15 years
Now,
with these
to your
ordinances.
point, the marijuana, that might be something the comp plan wants to look at, where do we want those things?
Yeah,
You know, that's something that.
I'm just trying to think ahead of the game.
No, absolutely,
So
no.
that,
Yeah, I don't see any of these being affected one way or another by the comprehensive plan.
well, my thing is, I wouldn't want to overtax the board, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah, no.
like tee it up.
It
so
needs
that
to be
the
done
comp-
though, but, I mean, this work needs to be done regardless of what the comprehensive plan may say.
So we
right?
do.
My
right?
first time with the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan, the select board, so I don't know, I'm learning it as like fire. So I just want to make sure that we're not
So
we're not
what-
killing everybody here.
What is the difference between these road standards and standards Sebago has now?
You have one standard.
We have one
We have a
state.
state standard.
Okay?
Yeah, and we're having difficulties really interpreting where and when that comes into play. I think the idea would be to establish variables in our road standards to give some flexibility to developers and give the board some clear direction of what the expectation is when somebody
That
comes
makes
into it.
sense.
So that we're not always kind of like, all right, well, private road, you can do what you want, you know, but you come in for a subdivision, you gotta build this full tilt, you know, major road.
Oh, that makes
There's gotta be
perfect
some
sense.
fairness in here, and I think the way we've seen it done in some other communities, like I was pointing out, is the private road standards are based on the number of units or lots served that determines the size of the road, and if that development in the future gets upgraded, so for instance, I think there's a standard for 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 1 to 4,
1 to 4 parcels,
1 to,
or 1 to,
yeah, fewer than 4 is one size of 12 feet. That's basically the same as a backlot driveway, but once you go to 4 to 10, that road grows to 16 feet, and then once you go over 10, then it grows to the full 18 feet with shoulders. And the idea is that if that road over time, more residents come into it, the people who are on the end are gonna be responsible for bringing that road up to the higher standard.
Is that how,
That's how all
So
towns.
the poor guy that puts the 18,000 in has to pay to widen the road by 6
basically,
feet?
yep,
Basically, yeah.
hope he's got money.
but let me ask you this.
Or
What
the
if
developer
they-
up front builds it to the best standard.
Who's to
so that
say
they can get into
it's
that.
not just somebody selling
What
lots?
if he doesn't have a 50-foot right-of-way?
Well, in some towns, we've done it where we've allowed the planning board to reduce that to 40 feet. And then the idea is that that will never, ever have the opportunity to be accepted as a town road.
There's a lot of little town roads in this town.
Well, what would
But
happen?
we're
is
also
all the
talking
roads that are-
safety, right? So let's
Right.
just say, I don't know, it's a camp road. I haven't read this, so maybe you've got it covered.
Yeah.
But maybe it is a camp road off of 114 going down to the lake, and all of a sudden they decide to put 6 houses in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they only have themselves, you know, whatever, 15-foot right-of-way.
So there's 2 ways I've seen that done. One way is that the town identifies that any roads that were in existence prior to the enactment of this ordinance are basically grandfathered. Any of the spur roads that would come off would have to meet
It's a new
the
standard.
new standards.
So all the old roads are grandfathered.
Or the other way I've seen it is that the towns have put their foot down and said, okay, you wanna keep developing down this inferior road, you gotta bring it up to standards. That brings,
I think that's a safety issue
it's a
myself.
safety issue,
But,
yeah, and there's gotta be a point where, when you're serving, I don't know, I'll just throw a number out there, just arbitrary, 20 lots, you know, there's a lot of trips in and out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea is that you gotta have a substantial road base to handle the heavy traffic and be able to get fire trucks and ambulances in there all seasons. You know, if you've got an inferior camp road, in the spring, we all know what they look like, you know.
Okay.
Do you wanna run a fire truck or an ambulance down there? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Do towns on private roads, do they require agreements with abutters for maintenance and maintenance
Dave, that's
standards?
a great question, and I'm always frustrated with what I get. What I get is when the board approves a private road, they ask that there's a maintenance association in place.
Yeah,
How it gets governed, how it acts, how it collects dues, it's not up to the town. The town just makes sure that when they approved it, there was a mechanism in place. How it gets executed afterwards, all the towns I've worked in have no say about that.
Jim, isn't there a
Becomes
state law that allows anybody on a road to start a private road to force basically a road association on it?
Yeah, again, it comes down to the execution though.
Yeah,
that would be a civil matter,
It's a
right?
civil
Yeah,
matter.
it goes back to civil.
It's all a civil matter, and that's, but what, you know, the reality is what happens in those communities though, if you have a long private road with a lot of lots on it, and they haven't collected the dues, the road will run out 10, 15 years, get in inferior condition, and nobody has the fees to make it, And then, they realize, oops, we got a problem here. They're paying the same taxes as everybody else. They try to get the town then to come in and fix the road and accept the road, and it ends up in a brouhaha, basically.
This is
Every town deals
a
with it.
nightmare.
It is a nightmare, and every town deals with it. Everybody tries to sweep this under the rug and make it go away, but it doesn't go away.
Yeah, so what if someone did, I'm just curious, now you got me.
Yeah.
So I can see that happening,
Mhm.
and believe it or not in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
because we're
I was gonna say,
private.
you're private.
And we have a road association, but we're dealing with elderly who can't maintain it as much.
Yeah.
And I know Kurt moved it out of here, but if it wasn't for him that lived in my neighborhood, we'd be screwed.
Yep.
He's got the equipment, so, but we have had people ask, when the town comes in and says, hey, we gotta do this so you get plowed, people are like, well, why can't we just have the town take care of it?
And that's-
And I always get asked that question, and I say,
I
I
think
can't
the town
answer that,
will
well, the town.
Well, the town, the thing would be to make the town take care of it, you'd have to establish that this is the minimum town standard that's in place for the town to accept this road. And that can only be done through select board or.
Or petition.
Or petition.
So that's new road.
No, they're talking about old road.
Old
No.
roads.
No, yeah.
You're gonna open this town to litigation. You're gonna have somebody put a 6-lot subdivision up off Anderson Road somewhere, and they're gonna say, well, we're gonna improve the road. That's gonna be, what are they, when you take people's land? Eminent domain. How's that gonna fly inside?
That's why I said there's two mechanisms for that. You could either do it that they have to build a new road to the town standard, the new spur to.
You could start a war.
It's a delicate.
But what do?
It's a
You keep
delicate
sweeping it under the rug and
Yeah,
you
you're not gonna take, I'll tell you what, if I lived on one of the camp
You
roads,
have to
like.
do something.
you're gonna take
We're
my-
at a point now in this town where we have to start paying attention to
Right.
this stuff, so
And
I
it's an
understand.
uncomfortable conversation that no one wants to have.
But you gotta have it.
It's not your land.
But it only gets worse with time. So at what point do you create an unsafe condition for people to live on a road?
We have a property on
You're right.
Mineral Springs Road in
No,
Wyndham.
I totally
Wyndham
get
is
it.
far,
We're in that
leaps
situation.
and bounds above this town, I'm sorry. Guess what I have to do every time I drive in that
You
road?
say you live in Wyndham?
I have to stop for oncoming traffic because it's a 1-lane road. It's paved. Just saying.
Yeah.
These camp roads probably should be left alone.
Okay, but do you stop allowing people to develop off camp roads?
Make them, so they put a 6-lot subdivision off that road, they have to make that road to standard.
That's what I was saying.
You're saying you have to make the whole road to
I
standard.
said there's two options. You either make them do the whole road to bring up the standard, or they make the road that they introduce to a town standard.
That's what the ordinance should say, the road they
That's
introduced.
up to the town, for you folks to debate and decide. Those are the options that I typically see.
Bob, do you need anything else from me tonight to bring back to the board? Or you just you're gonna be lining up a meeting for the next planning board meeting,
Yeah.
workshop? on
I'm
that?
just trying to write down the kind of stuff that's getting talked about, so at least we can look at those.
At your
Begin to
next,
talk about those and
so your next planning
prioritize.
board meeting is gonna have a workshop.
Yeah.
So, how would you look at, where in our ordinances would you kind of cross-reference all this crazy talk?
I think you'd want
I
to
haven't looked
create,
at it in a while.
yeah, I think you'd want to create, other towns have a specific worded section, streets. And then what happens is your subdivision ordinance reflects to that street ordinance.
So it's under the subdivision part?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Right now, it's under the subdivision standard, but typically what we've seen is that they create a separate street ordinance, and then the subdivision ordinance refers to that for the standards of the road that's applicable. So you create a separate chapter within your land use ordinance for streets.
I had a conversation with one of the attorneys at MMA last week and a half ago maybe. It was regarding actually roads, gravel roads, and asking if we could simply adopt the state's standards for gravel roads or the DEP's, whoever it is, and use that temporarily. And the answer really was no. State laws, you do not have the authority to enforce state laws, essentially. So therefore, they're not yours to use.
Yeah, you can't just refer to them, you have to adopt the standard.
Yeah, so the way our town is structured, if anything is going to imply, we have to adopt a standard around it. An
But
ordinance
we
around
could
it.
adopt the state standard.
We can adopt it.
You
but
can
we-
adopt
We
that
have to
standard.
vote on it, we have to go through all that process.
Yes.
Forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be moving forward.
yeah.
Well, you have, For the other roads.
here on. Am I thinking that's right? If you were to adopt a state standard, everything from this point on would have to meet that standard.
Yes.
But I
Close to that.
think that state standard that we, if we're talking about the one we dealt with a couple meetings ago.
Yeah.
From an engineering standpoint, that's a pretty loosey-goosey road.
Yeah.
I'd want better standards in place.
Oh, I know
mean, the
that. I know
dimensions
that.
may work, but I'd
I
want
know
some
that.
better standards.
I was kind of feeling out what we could do
Yeah.
about that and to get at least.
But I
a
think
legal
these
interpretation.
kind of overlap with that state road standard that you were talking about. I think they would, backlot driveways and many of these private roads would fall into that state standard. And then if they get into a larger road, then obviously you need a wider, bigger, better road. These kind of start formulating that. I mean, I don't know in this town how many roads have been accepted by the town in the last, I'll say, about 10 years. How many roads have been accepted by the town?
Too many.
One at least.
One.
We just did one.
Oh, no, that's right. One.
I was just curious, because I mean, most of them that we see in all these communities are private. And I think there's been, I think the opinions start to sway on that because we've had 10 or 20 years where we've been doing private roads and we're getting to that condition that we just talked about where the maintenance hasn't been done. And it could come back on the towns at some point to make some improvements on these things. And the taxpayer's gonna be thrilled with that. The money being spent on upgrading private roads, probably not. It's gonna get into hell, to your point.
You had it that way, boss.
So it's an ugly conversation, one that nobody wants to undertake, but you gotta start somewhere. And how you do it is the tricky part. And then you have, because I know this town has easement roads and, which.
Well, that's our biggest issue, I think.
Yeah.
is easy roads.
So the question would be, to me, it's not, I think for new roads, you can easily adopt this, then the question would be, to everybody's point, is what do we do when we develop a road off an already inferior situation? How do we address it? That, to me, is where the rubber, no pun intended, hits the road.
How courageous are we to stand up and take a stand?
Yeah, but that, I'll tell you, I've dealt this with other communities, and he's right, it will get ugly.
Well, you're saying it's gotta be done.
It's gotta be
So,
done.
how do you do it? The town takes a stand. You can take land by eminent domain. It's been done.
It's been done, but,
It's not pleasant, but if that's what it comes down to, are we courageous enough to do that?
or that, or you're just gonna limit development. It's gonna be restricted for development because people won't do
And they'll
that.
have to find someplace else to develop, and they can't develop off from the non,
Right, exactly.
Road.
Exactly.
It needs to be improved to the best practical extent, and I don't, that's as loosey-goosey as anything, but, you
I
know.
hear you, I
Yeah,
hear you.
yeah.
But there's gotta be, to me, there has gotta be a baseline minimum safe standard somewhere. That,
But you s-
basically, if you come off, I mean, that's the other way you can do it. You can say, if you come off a private road with a future development, the private road has to at least meet these minimum standards.
with a guarantee that it's going to be kept up.
Right, exactly.
Now, what's the guarantee? But there's no guarantee.
That's the problem.
So therefore, in order to be able to do what is in the best safety of the citizens, the town has to take some kind of a stand. Is it pleasant? No.
Or we could put conditions on the application for the subdivision, making sure that anybody who buys this is fully aware of these conditions that apply.
Let's not get bogged down with the solutions tonight, but
Yeah.
obviously.
There are grants.
Good.
It's interesting.
These are the conversations that are gonna have to take place as we develop these, but I guess the question would be is, how do you want us to proceed, which I'd like an answer for the next meeting, is how do we want to proceed with road standards? Obviously, it's a priority of staff here. How do you folks envision that we want to move forward with that? I mean, we do have some standards here for new things, but to your point, I think how we infuse those over existing conditions is going to be the heaviest weight that you're going to deal with.
Well, we haven't had that discussion directly on the planning board. We had that discussion, of course, on the ordinance committee.
Right.
So it'll be a little bit different, so we need to talk about that a little bit.
And as I said earlier, this ordinance is going to be the one that's going to consume the most time. That may be why you have to limit some of the other ones, because this one's going to take a lot of time and energy to really vet out.
Why do you say that?
Just because there's so many circumstances and
There is
situations
one.
that you don't even think about right now that are gonna have to be thought of as we go through this. Everybody's gonna come up with a scenario that goes, what do we do here? What do we do here? And,
Well, we're actually gonna have to rely on you guys a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of helping to frame that, in terms of what's a set of standards. Doesn't need to be huge,
right.
but it needs to be a
And
set
then-
of standards that we
then
can
to
live
Tina's
with.
point, what's the right way? What's the way you can live with? What's the way that the voters are gonna, accept?
Yeah. Let me test for a moment, I guess. When we stopped the ordinance committee for a bit, we were working to a very simple standard of trying to describe what it was we wanted. And then we had attorneys, of course, take that and turn that into an ordinance. In fact, we've got that for several that we haven't gone any further with. We had asphalt plants and concrete plants and sludge and those
Yeah.
kinds of things that are still sitting.
Look, I don't mean to interrupt you, but those were just a simple land use change. I don't
Those
see
are
why
easy,
that's so
yeah.
difficult.
Well,
Those aren't
they were all
challenging.
prohibited. They
Yeah.
were pretty simple.
Carolyn?
Yeah.
Well, they did it with a quarry, why can't they do it with an asphalt plant?
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's why it was simple, because we just said no.
Are there any ordinances that have to be looked upon for any state law changes? You guys are all talking new stuff, which,
We have
but
one,
I'm just curious, wasn't that supposed to be part of the talk tonight?
well, the other one we have, which is really not gonna be required by this town to adopt until 2027, is the new subdivision law.
I think we need more information, right?
We're gonna want
there's a
more
new one
information,
coming?
and I think the wise thing to do is maybe we can start the discussion on that, but I don't think it's necessarily a priority. The change with that is the state law is now going from 3 dwelling units as a subdivision to now 5 dwellings constitute subdivision.
Oh, those are the changes, yeah. yeah.
Not lots, dwelling units.
Yeah, I know.
And it's led to a lot of confusion, there's been some, you guys have probably sat in on a few of those already from the state, but they really haven't, I haven't seen that they've answered a lot of questions effectively yet. So I think there's more vetting out of that as well at the state level.
So what's the numeric reference to the subdivision law?
The merit behind it was they wanted to create more housing units.
No, it's like, just if I want to look it up,
Yep.
what is the,
Oh, the new one, that they're
Yeah.
1829.
so that's not effective until 27?
The towns aren't required to adopt it until 2027. So if you have a select board or a town meeting process, you are not required to adopt that until 2027.
So when does the state law go into effect?
State law goes into effect, I believe, third week in September.
This year.
So for 18 months or whatever that
Yeah,
is?
you're under your ordinance.
Yes, because of how we're organized as
Regardless
a
of what
town.
it says.
Regardless of what it says at the state level. Then in June of 2027, if you don't adopt it, then this town's subject to issues.
Can we get a copy of, just to save some time and research, of everywhere a street and road is mentioned in our ordinance? Street, road, private road?
Lane, ways, access.
Well, only because, we may think we're all set and golden, and as we're thumbing through, there's other
Well,
things
that's
that we
why my
gotta
suggestion would be
consider.
is when you define street,
Yeah,
you also say where this ordinance refers to as road, street, lane, access, so you cover it in an umbrella, just in case you do miss it.
yeah, okay.
Is there some way, Carolyn, this would be a good question on the survey, about how far the town is, how big a stand the town would take to bring the roads up to a certain standard? I don't know how to word that. I mean, you understand you're gonna open up a can of worms, and it's true. But, I wanna ask the town manager, but you can't answer that.
Well, we're gonna be putting that out to bid evidently instead of going with a certain one, and we can put them in there. But one of the largest parts they do in the comprehensive plan
Yeah.
is data collection.
Data
And that can certainly be worded in there on the roads, the private roads, in 5 questions if need be. But that's the largest part of the comprehensive plan to bring that in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely time to stop those ideas about putting that stuff out. We're gonna have to, doing a comprehensive plan is gonna open up all kinds of bad worms. So, I'm
Why they take so long.
learning real quick, so.
That's why they take so long.
Yeah, but, no, I think at the end of the day, it's gonna have to come, that's why I was asking about some of this stuff, if it's
we're trying to
Because we
push
have to
it.
put, obviously, a comprehensive team together of
Yeah.
multiple backgrounds, and that was suggested at the
We were
meeting.
trying to push that as quick as we could, so if there were questionnaires to go out there for different uses, like even a town launch use or whatever, that we could get that back for the ordinances, so you're not duplicating.
So if there's
surveys.
definitely questions, I would definitely suggest putting them together so that we can do it all at once. I mean, it would only make sense.
And they're great because they actually, instead of having us sit in a room here and thinking the majority of the people, 3 people say you want to do it this way, it's actually a statistical snapshot of the town on which direction they should be heading.
Yep. This summary that's in the comprehensive plan is very good, actually, just in terms of the written description that's only a page and a half long. At least it gives you a sense of where the town wants to go. And I'm assuming that's what we'll have in the next one as
I'm
well.
sorry, what was that again? Is that ours?
Yeah, that's ours.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a summary, it's a page and a half.
I was just wondering, I didn't hear that.
It's the first thing in the comprehensive plan. And then everything builds off of that.
So one of the early conversations we had before this meeting got started was one of the things we were contemplating is you have a lot of small applications coming before you right now for non-conforming or what's the word, most practical extent
Yeah.
type things.
Yeah.
Would be also in our ordinances to try to give that authority back to staff level with the planner and the code officer, where they follow the same statutes that you're following, but be able to do it at a staff level so they could be completed in a more timely fashion. With the caveat that if there was any issues, they'd always have the right to bump it to a planning board decision. But to allow that, so, because many of these are relocations of homes in shoreline zoning or relocations in a non-conforming lot. I've told you all along, I felt these are minor site plans that really, unfortunately, the way our process is, they're pushing people out very long periods of time and unnecessarily where they should be almost the equivalent of a building permit in some cases. So I don't know if that's appropriate at this time or whether you want to take it up now or whether, but that's a suggestion that we've thought at staff level to help move some of these smaller applications along much quicker.
Well, it's like the one down there at Long Beach, they wanted to put an 8-foot basement. You know, with the standards of the height and all of this stuff, you know it can't be done.
Right.
So what the hell, you gotta bring it, it's gotta come before, through you and back to the planning board and blah, blah, blah. What do we hire you for?
I mean,
Make a decision.
There's a cost to it as well, so there's additional cost to it, so why?
You what?
There is also additional costs, I mean, we're looking at saving money as well, so.
I know, but I mean,
But she
we
knows-
have to
yeah,
trust
the CEO
Christina.
Yeah, no, I get it,
That's her job.
I know,
you
I don't
and God
disagree.
love her, she's trying to
Yeah.
work with everybody here.
of course.
But
Yep.
I just feel like.
So I think what we'd like to see at what we, as staff, and Brett will be leading more of the charge for the ordinance work than I, would be to have a list of ordinances that either specific items in the ordinances or ordinances themselves that you'd like to work on, and then try to prioritize which ones you feel are the most important, so that we can have some kind of working document to say, okay, in this session, we want to uptake these particular items, these are the most important, let's focus on these, get these done, and if we have time, we can work on these other ones, but we have to do these 1, 2, 3, or 4. Usually, once you go beyond 4 or 5, you're running out of time, especially when you got a big one like streets.
Now, are you talking about new ones or just tightening up our old ones?
Anything. I think there's categories where you might have some clerical text changes, those are easy. And then there's some that you're gonna wanna put new guts in, revise, and then like streets, maybe a new one. We'll have to
Okay.
play with that, but the idea is to get a list formulated so that we have something we can work off of as basically a team. And then establish a priority of which ones we want to
There
move forward.
is a planning board meeting next week, I'm just
It's
curious.
the 9th,
Tonight,
that's the next one.
September 9th?
yeah,
Oh,
2.5 weeks.
okay, I was just curious.
So.
And then we'll try to provide, Rob, we'll try to provide what we think, we'll try to work backwards to what we think are dates that we need to have things, some milestone
Set up a
date.
timetable for it.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that by March 5th, we have to have this done.
It has to be done.
It has to be done, and the
Conversation.
final draft has to be going to the selectmen.
Yep. And that means 3 meetings in the month in February, it's 3 meetings in the month of February.
Exactly.
We're on the planning board.
And you may find as you go, you may need more in between, but
Well,
those
you
things.
know, it's gonna be more than one a month by a damn
Yeah,
sight.
most likely. Depending on how deep you want to dive in.
Well,
So,
Working backwards, based on the experience, I think the review board had this last year. February is about the last time frame we get this done,
I find
in
that
order to be able to beat the June
end of February.
town meeting timeline.
it's usually
oh, we've lost a lot of
mid-February.
months.
At the latest.
Yeah, mid-February is usually the latest, because you can have some special meetings with select boards, but to your point, to stay on a regular basis, regular meeting schedule, you really want to be done, ideally, middle of February. You could push it to early March if you had to.
Don't say that.
Okay.
Well, and the nice thing,
Mid-February.
Did I say, my thoughts said February.
the nice thing is too, these can run concurrently too. If there's certain ones that are larger, a larger undertaking, like the street ordinance standards, but there's also administrative clerical items that we want to clear up, we can kind of keep those going like on the same agenda and push those through the process and get those out of the way first and just done, have those over with. That way, you know, come time when we're ready to send all of them over to the select board, they're already done. So we've gotten part of the work already.
When you're talking about clerical errors, et cetera, are we responsible for finding those clerical errors and the contradictions in our
Everybody.
ordinances, or is that you guys
Everybody.
doing that?
Yeah, I think it's everybody. I think this is maybe to what Mike's point was earlier. And I think we're hopefully gonna achieve next meeting in September in formulating a list of items that he can take to the select board and they can vote on priorities and those sorts, I guess, of that nature. So,
The idea on the clerical side, I think that's a team effort. You know, we all read through these ordinances, we all see things that are, you're good at this. You find things that you think are clerically incorrect or unclear, and you want some clarification on, bring it up. If she works with a lot of ordinances, she may say, that doesn't make any sense, we don't have that section that it's referencing, well, let's clean it up. Those are the type of things we want to do. Just
So
tighten
start
them
from
up.
page 1, gentlemen.
Kelvin has left. If I recall, the select board, to get on the agenda of the select board, you have to have the information to them 2 weeks prior to the meeting. And in September, their first meeting is on the 2nd, that means their next meeting is on the 16th. If you all meet on the 9th, you're not going to make a September select board meeting with any list. We're really looking already in October to get it to the select board.
Well, and I think that's when we usually, to tell you the truth, we start hammering on these things in October, November,
Well,
and January.
so we're really bad at rules.
yeah, it'll be really tight, that's
Yeah.
for sure. So here's what I'm hearing so far, we've lost some folks here, so
So is that true?
here's the stuff I'm hearing, at least just listening to all of you and seeing what we have in the fire already, is the marijuana stuff, which is a new one for us. The roads, of course, we've talked about that. The peddlers, we started to do some work on that, so we'll continue with that, of course.
We have a draft in there.
Yeah, we've got drafts for concrete plants and paving plants that's already in the works that have to just go through, they get attorney approval at this point in our whole process.
That's not one of the ones that you're recommending.
No, not yet. It's there, though. We also had an ordinance in for setbacks in the shore area. You know, the 25, 50
Oh, the village?
foot. Yeah, the village district, yep. Fire protection, that's something you mentioned, actually, in
Right,
terms of
yeah.
not being that adequate. We had, I heard the subdivision, additional subdivision work. We had one ourselves that we were talking about, which is requiring surveys for any work done in the village district, particularly non-conforming lots.
Yeah,
Just to assure our
You might want
lines.
to extend to shoreline zoning.
What's that? Sorry?
I think that one you might want to extend to shoreline zoning too.
Yeah,
That's always the ugliest survey.
that's always the messy one,
Yeah,
yep.
they're the messy ones.
And the other one we brushed against last year and didn't do anything was moorings and the likes. Because again, it's the same thing, it's state standards that are out there, but we can't enforce any of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so I think,
and along with that, I'll say short-term rentals in terms of rentals of slip spaces and all those kinds of things
Oh,
that's
mooring.
going on.
Oh,
Mooring
boat
and
short-term.
docks and all
yeah,
that stuff.
boat short-term rental.
Yeah.
Be careful how you word that.
Yeah, we've already tried the other one.
Have you guys looked into the mooring thing? Check with Naples?
to check with Naples.
Naples about what happened when they put in their mooring ordinance.
No, I haven't talked to them about that.
I would strongly recommend that you do
But
that.
again, if you have, that's a pretty long list.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that none of those are important, but I think
They're
the
not-
chances of getting all those is slim to nil. We're gonna have to prioritize which ones.
Oh, sure, and realistically, we'll be lucky if we get 5 or 6 taken
Exactly.
care of for voting next year.
I was on the mooring committee
So-
several years, many
Oh, yeah.
years back. Check with Naples because they ran into a quagmire.
Robert,
I
if
got
you
it.
could you maybe just send around that list
Sure.
to Christina, us, and the rest of the board as a starting point?
Yeah, start to think about where do you see them? Yeah, where do you see them placed in terms of priority?
It would be good to just
We'll do
kind of
the
have a
same.
working, I know Paul doesn't get that unfortunately, but maybe we could get him
Yeah.
I'll send him a message. I can
Okay.
copy it and paste
And
it into a
then,
message.
same thing, if you guys start seeing things in the ordinance that, again, little text changes like Brett said, let's get those done as soon as we can.
So the 3 that you want to look at is cannabis, peddlers, and roads.
That's what the staff came back with.
Okay, so
In
if we
addition-
start reading the ordinances for those 3 parts.
What were
for the
they
next
again?
one,
What did you say?
Streets, peddlers, and marijuana.
And
Okay.
marijuana. We can't be studying all
Cannabis.
of those.
Land use and shoreland need to be on the list.
That's really heavy
Well,
too,
but
I
that's
think.
down the road.
A number,
Yeah, it's so tight in shoreland at this point, it's like, yeah.
Which one's that?
shoreland and land use.
Ordinances that affect shoreland and
They're
village area.
just mainly clarifications. For example, in land use, in one part section, it says that junkyards are prohibited. In another section, it outlines the standards by which junkyards can be approved.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing we noticed today too was there's no real clear location in the shoreline zone where it talks about side and front yard setbacks.
Yeah,
So those things need to be
But the
added.
next time,
I
are we
agree.
concentrating on those 3, cannabis, peddlers, and roads?
we're gonna be talking about prioritizing the next time
Yeah.
around.
Let's put
Get everybody
master-
on board
Let's
on
put the
some
master
boat.
list together.
Okay,
Yeah.
master list is what you want.
Yeah, master list and corrections. that
And
we
we'll make
wanna
some
look at.
assignments and we'll go
And then
from
we
there.
can basically then have a discussion about how we want to prioritize and
Yeah.
which ones are based on necessity, really.
That makes
Well,
sense.
that's what I'm concerned about. What is she
So,
doing?
okay.
And that's
Our
why
next
I always
meeting, our
lean
next
on her,
workshop.
because she deals with it every day.
That's
just
what I'm
gonna talk
saying.
about-
She knows a lot more.
We're gonna work on it. You bet. We're gonna prioritize.
Yeah.
We're gonna work on
Well, I
it.
mean, some of the administrative stuff, like I was saying, can run concurrently, like in Raymond, for example, we wanted to reduce the number of copies, and that was listed in the ordinance like 6 different times. And so it just took a little bit of time to go track down where specifically in the ordinance it was, and reducing it from 15 to 12. And it seemed like a lot of work, and maybe not as much payoff, but it helped the applicants. They didn't have to, pay as much to get all those items printed and stuff. And we got that through the planning board. It took like 2 meetings because they had to hear it. And then they did the public hearing, and nobody cared about the number of copies, and they were able to approve it, and then that went off to the select board for them to hear. So just small clerical items like that too.
Yeah.
Like Jim had said, if you notice that as well, that can be a discussion item for next month as well.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll have some more state statutes we'll have to pay attention to too at the same time.
Yeah, and again, and we'll hopefully get more of an education on where this new subdivision
Yeah,
takes us.
Okay.
There's still a lot of open questions about,
yeah.
same as they did with the LD 2003, septic rules.
Same
and
stuff,
Same
yeah.
stuff. It just, seems like they just magnified the problem larger.
Oh, yeah. And they're big changes. I mean, they affect a lot of things. Yep.
Christina, do we need to schedule a workshop
Well,
tonight?
they wanted to do one on the 9th before the meeting, so we can do it in an hour, is that good?
Yep.
An hour before, and then maybe we can think about the next one, like a schedule at that meeting.
And maybe to.
We're gonna have
Tina's
to have
point,
2 meetings a month.
maybe it comes to the point where you have your regular planning board for regular items, and then we have a work, another one in the month
A
dedicated.
2-hour workshop
Just
or something.
dedicated to workshop for
Yeah, I
ordinances.
think that's a good idea.
I mean,
Let's see. Yeah, let's see what we can do.
because in an hour, you don't,
Yeah.
I don't think you can do.
Well, I
Just
just
can't
think,
get the,
As
it
you
doesn't
get-
mean, what's gonna have to happen, I think, quite frankly, is that we can't just do it all in meetings. It's really gonna be, we're gonna have to grab leads on various ordinances and start to work out, just as we did before, start to work out a draft of what it would look like, and then go to work on that.
So how do you want us to attack this road thing? What would you do first?
I think the first thing would be to adopt the standards that we've kind of outlined, and we can kind of clean that up a little bit. But I think the minor street, the private street, the backlot driveway is where I would start to say, let's adopt those for new developments going forward. Start there, and then the underlying question will be, okay, where do we allow these to originate from? How do we do that? But I think you gotta start somewhere, just saying we need to have some basic standards based on number of lots served.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about the impact to the community and the safety behind it. You know, usually I kind of start thinking about, like, for example, that first footnote that talks about the threshold for the number of residences that the road serves, you know, like, things like that to think about, like, what type of road standards. Sometimes it's helpful, even just like driving by and just kind of seeing like what that physically looks like, you know, is this road sufficient to actually properly serve 3 homes or more, you know, Rame is a little bit of a different community, but it's similar-ish in size, you know, it's within a few thousand, it's not.
So we have
horrible.
town roads that aren't at those specs.
And so do other towns.
Yeah.
So what obligation does that put on the town to bring these up to these specs?
Don't think it does, because you have town roads, and you have private roads now that are established but won't meet these specifications, so you're not gonna say that they're gonna get sued because they didn't bring them up to code. They're grandfathered basically at that point.
Okay.
But I think the question would be, you know, that may be something in the comprehensive plan that they wanna discuss. If the town does have inferior roads, what is the long-term CIP budget to improve those roads, to bring them up to an acceptable safety standard? That's
why
something
at
that
the
should be,
select board
that's
meeting
something the
last
comp
night,
plan should discuss.
They were discussing about, Mike once said about that LiDAR
LiDAR.
plan where they can go around and survey all of the roads, dirt roads.
Oh, that was the street,
But that was for the road
yeah,
management plan.
there's a company
But
now.
that gives us a picture of what all, the condition of all of the roads.
The only problem I had with that is it gives you a condition of the surface, does not tell you what's underneath.
Yeah.
So LiDAR is like a grayscale thing, right? Isn't it?
LiDAR is satellite
Yeah.
imagery, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but explain that to
But
You
Mike.
can see every hole in the
Yeah.
ground, basically,
On the surface.
on the surface,
Yeah, it
yes.
does not have radar to penetrate and tell you what's
Would you
underneath.
please explain that to Michael? He needs to understand that because he believed, how would you say, Merle? He thinks
Well-
it's,
It does more than just look at road surface. It looks at bridge locations
Yeah.
and culvert locations. So it does provide you a map
A map.
of some basic infrastructure.
Right.
But I agree, it doesn't necessarily tell you what the subbase is.
Right.
Don't we have
One
a,
of the big
don't we have a
problems-
public works department for that?
Yeah, but usually, I'll tell you that if the problem's at the surface, 50% of the time it's underneath.
Right, and I can tell you that's, I think, the biggest problem we have in this town with our roads is that the subbase is inadequate.
Right.
Sure.
Well,
oh, they're so old. that they're just
that is
a-
not unique to the town of Sebago.
No,
That's
it's
every,
not.
you know, yeah, but our issue in our town is that we don't have a plan.
Right.
And we don't have the personnel to fix these things.
Right.
Now, like, we have people who think they can rebuild a road, but you know what? They're not engineers, they're excavator operators and dump truck drivers, you
Well, what
know?
we saw for a period of time when there were available funds is many towns had CIP budgets and they would put those out to private contractors to bid. And you had an annual budget that you say, okay, this year we're gonna hit
Yeah.
these roads and improve these roads. But it's circular, right? Because, you know, every 10 years, you gotta come back around to these roads. They
There's
don't
never-
last forever. Roads take a lot of maintenance and, you know, that's why you see my road, they just paved, I live in Gray, they just paved my road. I think it was paved 15 years ago. So every 15 years, it comes back up on a cycle,
Right.
paved, resurfaced.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of money. That's why your taxes do what they do.
Did you have other ideas that you wanted to add to the list?
Any other ideas?
Yeah.
Well, I have our
He had a
whole
whole,
list of
when
stuff.
you've gone, he went through a big
Yeah,
list.
I
So
went
he's
through a
gonna
whole bunch.
share that with all of us.
Okay.
It was leftovers from the previous
Yep.
ORC and.
That we're
Those
doing,
should all be-
and some others. Yeah.
Those should all be almost done and ready
Yeah,
to go somewhere,
Yep,
to an
they are,
attorney or
they're all set,
whatever.
yeah. And, Just some of the others I did mention, and in fact, I think you guys brought this one up around camper trailer septic, that kind of stuff.
Right, RVs,
Yeah,
shoreline allows septic hookup, but land use doesn't.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency.
yeah. Why did the land use not?
Probably an oversight.
Well, maybe the town wanted to ban it, but you adopted the state shoreline zone, which did allow it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's simple.
Yeah.
So the question is, which way do you want to go?
Yeah, well, you don't have anything, yeah. The other one we had talked about briefly was a farmland protection, just in terms of, in the new comprehensive plan particularly, thinking
Yeah,
carefully about
That
farmland
definitely would be
protection.
something that should come up in the comp plan.
Yeah, yeah, probably early for that, so. So I think we got more than enough stuff here. I'll put out the list to everybody that I have.
That'd be helpful.
Okay. Anything else, Christina, that you
I
had
don't
in
know what
mind?
I missed, did you guys talk about the peddlers? Or are we not?
Yeah,
gonna
they
bring
have it
that
on
up?
the
We got
list.
that.
Oh, you have it on your list,
Yep.
okay, good. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add,
Okay, all right.
And you want this done yesterday?
kind of.
Were you here when I did bring up the staff review?
With non-conforming lots and,
Yeah,
yeah, I did
yeah,
hear you
okay.
saying that.
So how is this gonna work? So I have some suggestions about the peddlers thing, say.
Yep.
Do we as a planning board say, yeah, we think this is relevant, you go change it? Are we writing it?
I think where we would do it is, I think we would want to have it so that, once we create our priority list, we set a workshop aside and say, tonight, let's work on peddlers. Let's get all the ideas, you have some ideas, bring them to the table, we'll take a shot at a draft. How do we incorporate what you have?
Yeah.
Did what we do make sense? Do we need to bring yours in? So we have one session where we basically create a draft, come back after everybody has input, review it again. That's why it takes so long. But
So you're doing this? You're,
we'll formulate the text, yes.
perfect.
We,
No, that's good. Because, again, we shouldn't be duplicating
Your
efforts.
ordinance geek.
No,
There you
So,
go.
so they're gonna do a bunch of
Yeah,
the stuff that
I
we're relying
think-
on the attorneys to do.
I think it helps keep it centralized that way.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I
Is
just
there-
wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that's how we
Is
do
there a
it.
format that you're going by that we should all have the same format to get the ideas down to
Well,
present?
we have one anyway. We have.
I would
one
send
anyway
them that
And that works
format,
pretty
Bob,
well.
that outline that we
Sure.
use.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
Yep.
And if you want to tweak it, but I think keeps things clear.
This
This
is,
We're all following the same format.
So essentially, if we wanted to make a change, we have the original text there,
We,
and then the
these are the ones
changes.
that
You've
are
seen
already
it.
in process. This is how we just format our thoughts about it.
Nice. I like it.
Go-
Then you write from that,
Who-
essentially.
Who at the town
That
level
way,
is
we're not trying to put
responsible
words all around it, we just try to frame it.
for infusion of the approved ordinance?
Can I do this?
Yeah.
Are you gonna
Say that
send that
again?
to us? the rest of
We
us, Bob?
have
I could,
Garrett.
sure. All the other guys have it already,
But-
the ordinance committee.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll make sure you get it.
And we would welcome your help.
Say that again?
Well, my
think-
question is,
I
once
think
we get
it's
done with an
rough manager,
ordinance,
but-
Yeah,
okay, that piece of the ordinance has to be revived in the master ordinance for the town.
yes.
Who's responsible for that work?
Yeah.
To make sure that it's done
Well,
exactly
in
as
the-
it was
in the
approved,
past-
it's in the right section, and
In the past, that had been the attorney who oversaw that.
Oh, really?
but he
Right.
actually, they actually
You mean
made
in
the
terms
physical
of-
changes to the ordinance
I
in the
know, I think it
town
was
master
Desiree
ordinance.
that put
Sometimes it's
it
the
in.
clerk.
Yeah.
It was Desiree.
You're talking about getting it physically into the book, is that
Yeah,
what you're
I'm
talking about?
talking about physically getting into the master ordinance here in the town.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking about
The
that.
I'll tell you,
second hour-
more problems are created, a lot of problems are created in getting those in,
Oh, yeah.
nothing gets you carried.
No, we have, we
Garrett's got that job right now.
No, as you know, we
The
have,
executive secretary of the planning board, that was her responsibility.
It is a hard job and
It's
it's a
tough.
lot of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
I know towns have hired consultants, national consultants, and it's
To do that
expensive, but
stuff.
it's clean, I'll tell you, when you get done, it's a much
well,
cleaner
as I say, if
job.
you know everywhere that a road is mentioned, a street is mentioned, a lane is mentioned,
Yeah.
then you have to cross-check everything to
Yeah,
make sure
exactly.
that what we have now, or want to have, will apply
Well,
there.
you can do word searches for that, to
That's
help
what I
with
meant.
that. You gotta have the
It's
master
a text
files.
search, it's a text search, and it can get,
Yeah.
and then it can just get confusing in itself.
And you guys have Word documents for all various
I believe
ordinances?
we have the ordinance on Word, yeah,
Okay.
so I would be
I
able
hope so,
to.
yeah.
And then the question is, what version of Word, do you need to update it, so?
Stop it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm serious, because we're all working on different versions, so that makes a difference.
Well, you have to work on what he's got.
I have-
We hired you.
Based on y'all's
Town's gonna
experience,
change its version at some point, right?
I'll just send it to it as PDF, I guess,
Well, eventually, yeah, but I mean, the master has gotta be in a version.
in Word format,
Yeah.
yeah.
so based on y'all's experience working with other towns, if you do the process of drafting the ordinance, do the other towns send that to their attorneys for review?
Yes.
Yep.
And so what are they sending? The entire written change or just an outline of
No,
the change?
the change, they send the actual change in an edited format. So they take the ordinance, they redline what they're taking out, show the text that they want to insert, and then that's what the attorney reviews.
What we included was the reason and rationale behind our change,
Yes.
so that they can understand the intent of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And it may be one word change, or it may be
In some
whatever.
cases, like with roads, it may get to the point where it's so legally cumbersome, maybe we might have to have a session with an attorney just to be clear about that.
Okay.
That one I can see is
But,
gonna, I know.
is everything so complicated that the lawyers have to be involved? I mean, this town ran, it's like about 5, 6 years ago, our selectmen, the group who was on the select board at that time, every time they turned around, they had to hire a lawyer. And therefore, we have gone down that road ever since. And it's some decisions that were made by the select board that caused the legal problems that we're in right now.
The only reason I say that is because if something comes up with that ordinance, in the end, you're gonna want the attorney who's defending you to have a say in how it was adopted, so they can defend you. That's always, it's cover your butt, it's wag.
But how much can a town afford? A town this size?
How much can they not afford?
Yeah,
Bob, how many ordinances do we have?
well, we have a bunch, but, I mean, when I look at what we did last year, okay, in terms of the ordinance we took care of, we spent literally $3,000 of attorney fees, that's all.
That
for
I can
ordinances.
understand. That is reasonable.
Yeah.
But in the
That-
beginning,
With the structure we were
it
using,
was-
it got, it was
Okay,
pretty
it got
smooth
better.
doing that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, it's kind of viewed as the upfront initial legal review is a really small investment that has a really high
Yeah.
payoff.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is reviewing the document, making sure it's enforceable, making sure it's legal, and that way it doesn't open up the town to any liability upon adoption.
Yeah.
Versus the opposite, obviously, if legal doesn't look at it for the review piece, even though we may or may not want it though, if we did end up making an ordinance that didn't follow some state law that we just weren't informed about or just don't know because
Yeah.
we're not lawyers, and then it opens the town up to liability, which could have a much higher cost than the
I agree.
initial fee, so.
But when you look at the amount that was put aside in the budget for legal fees, if you're saying you only spent $3,000, that's reasonable, so put it at $15,000.
Well, see, the
And that's
problem, that's the
reasonable.
problem with the budgeting process, in my opinion,
Yeah.
is because I was on the budget committee last year, I will be this year,
Yep.
but the reference point they looked at for establishing this year's budget was last year's budget.
I know.
Not the amount of money that was spent last year, or the year before, or the year before that. So the 15,000 that was allocated this year for the ordinance review legal expense was the same amount of money that had been budgeted the year before. But it was never identified how much of the prior year's 15,000 was actually spent. So it's a deficiency in the thought process at the budget committee level.
I disagree with you. I think it's at the management level.
Well, but
So-
the budget committee is responsible. And management does participate, and yes, it is the management that provides the information. We asked,
I think if you,
we didn't get it.
and I wouldn't just lay it on, this is just an observation. The selectmen didn't do any better, correct?
That's true.
Okay, so whatever they came with a budget for, I have not heard of one presentation that got cut back.
That's the scary part, David.
Well,
I understand
It's
that.
horrible.
well,
You spent, you got a freaking $1 million mortgage bond on that fire station. You just spent $750,000 on a fire truck that you may or may not have needed, but, and then you look at their CIP, what they get every year to replace all these trucks. You're talking $750,000 fire department budget, you know? That's what's wrong with this town. And the public works, same thing,
I don't think we're gonna solve that at the planning board.
not the way.
you know?
No, but there's a lot of.
Anyway, I digress, sorry guys.
Oh,
Okay.
time to go.
So, to be honest, I'm gonna be away all next week, so I won't get this out until, actually Friday morning. I won't be able to get it out until I get back. But it'll be a week away.
David's copy.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, we can do
So,
that.
so Bob, I have a
That's
list,
what she's waiting
Yes.
for.
I have a list that overlaps your list.
Really?
I'll
Okay.
send it to you and you can weed
Thanks, man.
out between them.
Yep.
We need a second, oh no, it's a workshop, we don't have to do that. Oh, sorry, I got
That's
carried
it.
away with
We're
my
done.
parliamentary.
That's it.